In this video, we're going to look at worked answers to each of these 6 questions. If you want to have a go at these before we go through the answers, pause the video now. For this question, we're going to describe and explain how the composition of the Earth's atmosphere has changed. We'll start by breaking down the question. Describe means we need to say what has changed, and explain why have those things changed. Composition just means what it's made up of. We're going to start off by reminding ourselves what had changed between the early and the current atmosphere, looking at the 3 main gases, carbon dioxide, nitrogen and oxygen. In the early atmosphere, there was lots of carbon dioxide. In the current atmosphere, it's about 0.04%, so this shows there's been a decrease in the amounts of carbon dioxide. There was only a little nitrogen in the early atmosphere. In the current atmosphere, there's 78%, so this represents an increase. There was no oxygen in the early atmosphere. There's about 21% in the current atmosphere, so that represents an increase in the amount of oxygen. So we can use this mini table we've made to help us write our answer. We'll start off by saying that the amount of carbon dioxide has decreased. And the main reason for this is that it dissolved into the oceans. Once in the oceans, it formed sediments on the seabed. Marine animals then used this dissolved carbon dioxide to make their shells. And then when those marine animals died, they were buried under layers of sediment over millions of years that compressed them and turned them into fossil fuels, trapping that carbon under the seabed. The amount of oxygen has increased from the early atmosphere, and this is because plants started to photosynthesize. And in this process, they take in carbon dioxide and they released oxygen. This can also be a reason why carbon dioxide decreased, but since this is the only reason why oxygen increased, we talk about it all together under the oxygen increasing topic. Finally, we'll say that the amount of nitrogen increased, and this was because it was released from volcanoes, so over millions of years the amount of nitrogen in the atmosphere slowly built up. For this question, it says that carbon dioxide is a greenhouse gas. Describe the greenhouse effect. So breaking down the question, describe means say what, so it's something which you should have learnt, and we're describing the greenhouse effect. Now, whilst this is an answer you should have learned, you can help yourself remember the process by drawing a quick sketch. So in this quick sketch, we can see that we've got the sun, the earth, and this green line represents the atmosphere. So just remind ourselves of what this general process is. The sun emits shortwave radiation, which passes through the atmosphere and is absorbed by the Earth's surface. This is then re-emitted as long-wave radiation, which is then absorbed by the greenhouse gases. They then re-emit this in every direction, causing the temperature to increase. So we can see how a little sketch like that can help us remember what this process is. We'll now put that process into 4 sentences. The first part of that process is the sun emits shortwave radiation, which passes through the Earth's atmosphere. This is then absorbed by the Earth's surface and re-emitted as long-wave radiation. This is then absorbed by the greenhouse gases, which then re-emit it in every direction. And this then causes the temperature of the Earth to increase. In this question, we're given a graph, which we'll look at in a moment, but the question is asking us to look at the statement, the graphs show that increase in the concentration of carbon dioxide in the atmosphere causes global temperature increases. Discuss why this statement is only partially true. So there's a lot in that question. We'll start by breaking it down. The question asks us to discuss the statement. That means we need to give reasons for the statement and reasons against the statement. So reasons why it is and why it isn't only partially true. Since the question says it's partially true, you know you'll be able to give some reasons for and against. it's a good idea to look at the two graphs and look at what information they give you. So for graph A, we can see that there is no change between 1900 and about 1950, and then there's a rapid change after 1950. So the concentration of carbon dioxide stays constant, then it rapidly increases. For the graph showing the temperature change, there is a general increase across the period 1900 to 2000, so we can see that overall it does increase. However, there is some variation. We can see spikes, obviously at different points of the year, and we can see some general trends where it goes up and down. So it's not a straight line, we can see some up and some down. So we can start off by saying that there is a link between the carbon dioxide levels and the temperature, because as we can see there has been an increase in the carbon dioxide and there has been an increase in the temperature. So one of the reasons this statement could be partially true is because there is a link between the CO2 levels and the temperature. And we're saying this is partially true because there is some short-term variation. For example, whilst there wasn't any change in the carbon dioxide levels really between 1900 and 1950, the temperature was still increasing, and then it went down again, but the general trend is increasing. And we can give some data to back up our answer. So we can say that, for example, the carbon dioxide concentration has increased rapidly from 1950, and in that time the temperature has gone from 14.8 to 15.5. So we've looked at the values here and the values here. And we can give a reason for this, so we can say that since 1950, carbon dioxide increase has been caused by humans burning more fossil fuels, so we can explain where that increase has come from. In this question, we need to use our knowledge and the data provided to evaluate the use of biodiesel rather than petrol as a fuel. So let's look at what the question's asking us. So the question tells us to use our knowledge and the data provided. So we've got to talk about these three things here and use the data in some way, and we've then got to link that to our own knowledge. This is an evaluate question, which means we've got to give advantages, disadvantages, and come to a judgment. So let's start off by linking the three things in the table to our own knowledge. Well, we know that carbon dioxide is a greenhouse gas, so it causes the greenhouse effect. We know that soot, or carbon particulates, cause global dimming, and we know that nitrogen oxides cause acid rain. So this is a bit of information from our own knowledge. When we write our answer, we'll use the data to link these to each kind of fuel. Biodiesel can be made from crops. If we need more space to grow those crops on, that could cause deforestation. So that's another point we can include in our answer. So our first point is that both produce the same amount of carbon dioxide, so they contribute equally to global warming. Now, we haven't said they've both got 4,000 grams emitted, but we've said it produces the same amount, so that counts as using the data. We've then used the data again to say that petrol produces more soot, so it will cause more global dimming than biodiesel. Now we've used a comparative there, we've said it produces more, we've not just said it produces a lot, but we've compared it to the biodiesel, and we've then linked it to our own knowledge by saying that the soot will cause global dimming. We've then said that biodiesel produces more nitrogen oxides, so will cause more acid rain. Again, here we're using comparative language, we're comparing the two. Finally, biodiesel can be grown from plants. It means more space could be needed, which could cause deforestation. This will cause more carbon dioxide to be released. Now we've compared each of these, we need to come to a judgment. So for this, you would need to give your opinion. For example, you could say overall that I think biodiesel, or petrol, is the best fuel because, and then looking at these reasons, you would decide which are the most important or which carry the most weight. There's no right or wrong answer to this judgment. It's up to you to write a sentence summing up which of those points you feel is the most important, or has the biggest impact. So as long as you come to a balanced judgment using some of the points you've referenced, you'll get the mark for that final part of the question. This question says that coal contains carbon and small amounts of sulphur. A steam train would cause environmental problems if coal were used as the fuel. Explain why. So this fuel contains carbon and sulphur, and we'll come on to why that's important in a moment. We need to look at what environmental problems these two would cause. And we then need to explain, which means give a reason why. So the question tells us that carbon is used in the fuel, and we know if we do complete or incomplete combustion of carbon-based fuels, we produce carbon dioxide and solid carbon or soot. If we burn a fuel with a small amount of sulphur in, that sulphur is oxidised to sulphur dioxide. So we can now look at the environmental problems of each of these. Carbon dioxide causes global warming. Carbon, or soot, will cause global dimming. And sulphur dioxide will form acid rain. So we can now take this little bit of information and we can turn it into our written answer. So we'll start off by saying that the combustion of the coal would produce, and then we'll go through each of those three products we've just talked about. So produce carbon dioxide, which is a greenhouse gas, and that will cause global warming. It will also produce carbon particulates, and that will cause global dimming. And it also produce sulphur dioxide, which would react with the water vapour in the clouds, forming acid rain. So we've used that little quick answer we wrote at the start and expanded on it a bit to give a full explanation of why if a steam train used a fuel containing carbon and small amounts of sulphur, it would cause environmental problems. In this question, we're explaining why the area of the ocean with sea ice has changed. Most scientists believe this is due to the activity of humans. Explain those activities that humans have done which have led to the changes in the sea ice from 1979 to 2016. The question asks us to explain, so we need to give a reason or explain how this has happened. And we're looking at the activities of humans which have caused a change in the sea ice. So we know the amount of sea ice has decreased, it's been melting. This has been caused by global warming. And we know global warming has been caused by an increased amount of greenhouse gases. So what we need to look at now is how have humans increased the amount of greenhouse gases in the atmosphere. And all of these reasons stem from the fact that the human population has increased. So one thing we've done is we've cut down all the forests, we've caused deforestation. And we've done that because we need more space to live and to farm to grow crops. We've also produced more waste, and that releases carbon dioxide when it decomposes. We have more energy needs, so that means we're burning more fossil fuels to meet those energy needs. And if the population's increased, it means humans need more food. And cows and rice both produce methane in their production, which is another greenhouse gas. So we can now use all of this to write an answer to what would be a 6-mark question. So we'll start off at the root cause of that change, and that's that the human population has increased. We need more space to live and farm, and that means more deforestation, which will produce carbon dioxide. More food is needed, so farming cows and growing rice, that releases methane. We have more energy needs, which means more fossil fuels are going to be burnt, and that means more carbon dioxide produced. We have more waste, and that decomposes in landfill, again releasing carbon dioxide. And carbon dioxide and methane are greenhouse gases. This causes global warming, and this causes the ice cap to melt. So you can see how this is a logically put together answer to answer the question.